Distance Education in California Community Colleges. A brief introduction. The objectives of this brief presentation are to define distance education within the context of California community colleges, as well as highlight significant recent trends in distance education instruction within California community colleges. Let's first start with the question, what is distance ed? Perhaps it helps to think about defining traditional education first. Traditional education refers to instruction in which the instructor and student are in the same physical location. Distance education, on the other end of the spectrum, is defined in California Ed Code Title V, Section 55200 as instruction in which the instructor and student are separated by distance and interact through the assistance of communication technology. The term hybrid, or sometimes the term blended is also used, is defined as a distance education course that requires a physical on-site presence for any reason, including the taking of examinations. Now, that phrase distance education actually encompasses many different delivery methods. Sometimes people think that distance education refers specifically to asynchronous online learning, but it actually encompasses a variety of delivery methods, including, for example, courses that are delivered via television, or courses that are designed as self-paced classes that the student interacts with through web-based content. However, asynchronous online classes comprise 75% of distance education sessions in California community colleges, and that statistic is taken from the 07-08 academic year. So, while distance ed does encompass a variety of delivery methods, asynchronous online classes are certainly the most popular type by far. In fact, these types of distance ed classes increased 26% in California community colleges from the 06-07 year to the 07-08 academic year. So what is asynchronous online delivery? Well, essentially it's course content that's designed, developed, and shared via the internet, generally through a course management system such as Blackboard, Moodle, Desire to Learn, and a few others as well. Students interact with the instructor and other students in the class through asynchronous communication tools. And that phrase asynchronous, if you're not sure what that means, it simply implies communications that are delayed, such as email and discussion boards, in contrast to discussion or conversation and communication that occurs live time. That type of communication is referred to as synchronous. So what's happening with headcount in California community colleges when we're talking specifically about traditional education versus distance education? It's pretty fascinating, actually. Distance education in the state of California and community colleges, as well as across the nation, this isn't a state-specific trend, has been growing astronomically for many years now. And if we compare the academic years 06-07 to the following year 07-08, you can take a look at this graph over on the right side of the screen and see that while face-to-face, or I should say traditional education, still is definitely the dominant delivery method, it's represented in green, we saw a 23% increase in distance education headcount, while face-to-face or traditional headcount dropped 9% in that 1 year. So who are our distance ed students? Well, they certainly run the gamut from under age 18 all the way up over 50. However, it's clear from this graph that there's a real strong interest coming from the 18 to 24-year-old age group, and they comprise 56% of our distance ed students. Now, if we think a little bit about generational trends, that really does make a lot of sense. These are the traditional millennial generation students. And it may strike you to ponder for a moment that the students in this age group, these are the students who actually don't even remember a life before the internet. So learning online is certainly something that is going to feel much more natural to them than perhaps some of our older students who are looking to distance education for increased access. Now, success rates for distance education traditionally have been lower than our traditional education success rates. And a success rate is essentially the percentage of students enrolled at the end of the class who end the class with the grade of an A, B, or C. And from this chart, we can see that the success rates for traditional education are typically higher. What's also interesting is to compare success rates by age. And while there's not a dramatic difference between the age groups, it is curious that our 18 to 24-year-old students who show the most demand for distance education classes are also the ones with the lowest success rate. And so when we think about that, of course, it's important to think about what that age group is transitioning into. They're coming out of generally a high school environment, and they're trying to juggle a lot of different tasks. So when we think about teaching online, what we want to do is construct a course that informs our students clearly about what they should expect in the class and consider a variety of ways to support student success. All data from this presentation has been extracted from the Periodic Report on Distance Education, which was shared through the California Community College's Chancellor's Office. The report was prepared by the Academic Affairs Division and the Office of Communications, and it was released to the public on September 1st, 2009. If you'd like to download and view the entire report, it is available online at the URL at the bottom of the screen.